our activity today, the panel and this creative discussion, is about exploring how we can bridge those worlds of natural cosmetics, tourism, and of course, I mean, wellness is part of it, right? And we are going to do this using looking into three main key topics. From tradition to tourism, how can we design wellness experiences? And then informed product sourcing in hospitality. I feel there is a lack of knowledge in the products that are sourced. And then, from guest to advocate, how can we inspire lasting change in our guests? And let's see a little bit about yourselves, our fantastic panel who is here. Alina, you're first on the picture here, so please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alina Hernandez. I am the founder of Wellness Innovation Hub, and I'm also an award-winning program designer. I'm also a partner of the Touchless and advisory board member of the Touchless Wellness Association, and I actively do what is now known as experience and service design. And I take that across both product design all the way to hospitality and wellness. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Gillian, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Gillian, and I am coming from the Transformational Travel Council, and where I work with destinations, communities, tour operators to help them design more meaningful experiences with long-lasting impact. I've been working in the travel industry for about 20 years, mostly in the adventure side, and then now moving into the more transformative, meaningful, and that of course bridges really closely with wellness. I think that the most powerful tool we have in our toolbox to have travel as a force for good is in experience design, conscious experience design, and really connecting the place with the experience, which seems to be obvious, but it's often missed. And I'm very happy to be here.
Cool, I guess it's my turn. So hello, everybody. My name is Satu Mäkinen, and I'm the founder of the European Natural Beauty Awards. That is a platform. We're going on our 7th season now, the next year. So we award the highest quality, truly natural cosmetics in Europe. And we keep very high standards, the same natural cosmetics standards that, for example, Natru is in our jury as well. And we follow the same standards as Natru, Cosmos, and Biovita Sana, other certifications in Europe. And majority of the brands that we work with that are awarded yearly are very indie brands, so smaller independent brands, and often they are also those local natural cosmetics makers that we're going to be talking about a lot today. Very brief note from my past. So I also was a cabin crew before. I was based in the Middle East and was flying the whole world, each continent. So I do have kind of that experience from the travel side and visiting countless and countless of hotels and spas. And I've seen it firsthand what it is, what they offer us the wellness product side. So kind of interesting to see how we can bridge those things today. Excited to be here.
Thanks. My turn. Hi, everyone. My name is Nigel Franklin. I am the founder of the Spa Whisperer. I am the co-founder of Moss Wellness Consultancy. Both are wellness development agencies. I'm also the co-founder of Moss Wellness, Moss of the Isles, which is actually a boutique natural brand, Celtic brand based in Ireland that uses ingredients only, topical to this conversation, uses ingredients only found in Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, and England. I develop and design luxury wellness well-being destinations. My niche seems to be evidence-based and regenerative developments. And just on the travel, last week, I went to my 113th country. So I'm pretty well versed on this beautiful planet of ours. And I'm super happy to be here. Also, I forgot, I'm also, along with Alina, a partner and on the board of the Touchless Wellness Association.
Amazing. What a gang. I think this input is going to be really valuable. Quickly about myself, I'm Andrea Andres. My background is actually as a holistic skincare therapist, but I've also always worked in hospitality and tourism for the past 20 years and made my own cosmetics and everything. This is how Satu and I know each other as well. And today I want to immerse way more into wellness travel and design, wellness travel experiences and retreats, and really combine these two powerful topics. So yes, and I was saying, like, giving like a quick background to what we are going to talk about. And I think all of us here know that the travel industry is massive. It accounts for 10% of the global GDP. So the impact we can have is huge. And the impact, or like the impact to connect people and business and communities and bring money to the destinations and have people experience basically a bigger understanding of local communities and traditions and so on is huge. And I think when we understand this humbleness, we also treat lighter on the planet, and we do make more conscious consumerism choices and so on. And I always feel that when we talk cosmetics, that everyone thinks, oh, that's just vanity, and that's just like, no one really thinks about the massive impact that it has. This is something we use every day in our private homes, and when we go on a trip, we use cosmetics, skincare, shower gels, paste and everything, right? So I'm thinking here, the impact cycle is one thing, like where does a product or its ingredients come from? Is it petrochemical, or is it, shea butter from a women cooperative? That's a huge difference on impact. What does it do on our skin, our body's biggest organ, which is linked with all our health and immune system? And then also, where does it go when we flush it down the drain? Which brings me to the next little point. Here is little point, it's not that little, but treatment plants, wastewater filters have a very hard time filtering out a lot of these chemicals, which is even a bigger problem, not just in westernized or industrialized countries, but in remote destinations, developing destinations, and so on. And then the third point, I was thinking why we should, or the tourism industry should pay attention to this, is mass-produced petrochemical products are not luxury. It's like a deception. They look great, they sound great when you read the label and everything, but then what's in it is it's not luxurious.
Or wellness.
Or wellness. No, it has nothing to do with that. So this is like the background why we should care, why this is very overlooked, but also very, in the zeitgeist, basically.
Yeah.
So from you all now, I would love to know, let's see, I'm just going to admit someone. So from you now, I would love to brainstorm around this, from tradition to tourism, right? How can we start designing immersive wellness experiences that safeguard and integrate local knowledge or local brands, local ingredients, traditional beauty practices? How can we go about that? Anyone jump in?
Well, I don't know if anybody had anything ready, but I could give a little example. So maybe things will move on from there. So if we think about a culturally immersive wellness experience, into my mind first comes up, I'm from Finland, so for me comes a sauna experience. That's a very local and traditional, both wellness and beauty thing as well. So of course there are a lot of saunas, there are a lot of spas that offer different, whether it's sauna experience, the traditional treatments with hitting with the birch branch or these kind of things. But then there's often also beauty treatments where products are being used, whether it's a mask inside the sauna or there are some treatments afterwards or this kind of concept. And then when we think about how those experiences were in the past, they were all 100% natural, the products that were used, because all this modern cosmetics industry didn't exist yet. So basically those old traditions, they are those birch branches, or that is the peat that was made in the face as a mask, or that was nettle or pine trees as a aromatherapy, or this kind of things. So where do we kind of go? Like, let's say this is the culturally immersive wellness experience, but if we use in those treatments synthetically made products and everything, where does the wellness stand, right? So is it like that we actually can support and lift those local brands that only use those 100% natural local ingredients as well in it, and then the culturally immersive wellness experience actually becomes real in that sense? So I thought to throw this kind of example first.
I would agree. You also, have to understand, anytime you're talking about skincare, right, there has to be a conversation about your skin-brain connection. Your skin is essentially your brain on the outside, right? They're both made out of the same embryological layer, right? The ectoderm. So understanding that gives you an opportunity to take skincare away from beauty care and put it into kind of like some kind of neurosensory landscape. Local products specifically are really good for this, and natural products as well. Local products, natural products, they support a greater conversation of regenerative wellness, right? It's Alina's heard me say this 1,000 times, but sustainability is just not making things worse. Regenerative is actively making things better. And actually, Alina takes it and goes one step further than that. So that feeds, using natural local products feeds into a full regenerative delivery model. The other thing, if you're talking about using natural products, from the romantic in me, right? Natural products create storytelling, it's memory, it's heritage, it's meaning, right? And because if you're coming for this from the perspective of brain skin connection, all of these prompts in the ingredients, your brain responds to meaning. And so if there is meaning in the natural ingredients, and in addition to that, I think natural ingredients, in addition to the storytelling, much better, natural ingredients are much better at regulating your nervous system, right? So if you're having, let's say, chemical fragrances, your body receives chemical fragrances as spam. Your brain receives chemical fragrances as spam. Your brain receives natural fragrance as data, right? And that's really the difference. And if the brain can receive data, it can respond to the data. For example, if you're trying to build natural products into a wellness environment, what a natural product would do is positively influence the limbic system, for example, the part of your brain that feels like pleasure, pain. So for me, what that would suggest then is a faster transition to a parasympathetic state, right? So what better way, if you're in a massage, to use natural ingredients that give a fast shift to parasympathetic and get the guest. So it's not just your hands, the music, the environment, the actual ingredients themselves, right? This is always, again, Alina, I'm sorry, she's heard me say alchemy a million times, but this is all alchemy, right?
So I think this is a perfect segue because I'd like to dial it back a few notches and and two ways, because I love to contextualize things to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. And you said something at the beginning of the call, Andrea. You said, people associate cosmetics with luxury, and they associate, you didn't say luxury, as I think you said it was a frivolity or something that is not necessary. Well, we know in neuroaesthetics, actually, the brain is wired for beauty. So the act of beautification is the very thing that the brain responds very well to. If I go back to the original meeting, because you said, what is cosmetics? Let's define, first of all, when we talk about cosmetics, what is it that we're talking about? And what is the original meaning of cosmetic? The word cosmetic came into, let's say, it's first time use in around 1600s. And it really means the art of beautification, the art of anointing or decorating the human body. And it has the word cosmos in it. And cosmo just means order. It just means to adorn, to arrange in order. So there is a harmony to it. If we look at neuroaesthetics, that's what we know. The brain responds to order, it responds to symmetry, it responds to certain conditions. Now, if we're going to be shifting the whole mindset of an industry of people, I think while it is extremely important to storytell, I think first we have to go back one step further. And the back step further is this. If we're going to be compelling and engage people as to why they should make that shift, then I think we need to look at probably the biggest elephant in the room, and that is microplastics. Why? Because cosmetics contain a huge amount of microplastics. They enhance texture, they exfoliate, they give products like makeup a specific finish. And studies have proven and found that a high percentage of products from all the brands contain microplastics. And, we can go on and on about all of these are, but this is critical because they involve rinse-off products, they involve makeup, they involve skincare, they involve toothpaste. And we now know Professor Jerry Bodarker, a very esteemed epidemiologist and actually an expert on medicinal plants the world over, Oxford, Harvard, educated, who was one of my mentors, just published a massive paper on microplastics. And what we know is two important things that I would like to invite everybody to know about this. The first thing, the biggest place in the body where microplastics go is the brain. And it specifically the prefrontal cortex that doesn't bode well for aging well, first of all. And the second thing is we cannot get away with it and from them. Why? Because the biggest place and the biggest creator of microplastics is the dust that comes off tires that slowly, degenerate from use, and they poof off into the air and we breathe them. And this means you can be in the middle of a jungle in Papua New Guinea, but because there's still tires somewhere on that place, they will eventually migrate to even very, very remote areas. And what does it have to do with the price of tea in China? It has to do with the fact if we are going to be compelling in inviting others to take up natural cosmetics, to move into the regenerative cycle, by the way, which is a loop of economies of scales locally, then we have to give them a really good reason why. And that means inviting those who are making basically all of their products with these, really they're forever chemicals, by the way. Yeah. They are forever chemicals. Then we need to be compelling as to why. We need to be compelling about the economic model as to why you should do it. And then go into all those important things and really make the case that we should adorn ourselves with the most pure ways that we can take care of ourselves, our environments, our planet, and basically build supportive and co-creative ecosystems that support all of this. And I think that's important to contextualize the conversation this way, because then I think we are building a case for why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
I think that also the question is around, culturally immersive wellness experiences. I think we need to push the envelope about what wellness experiences are. They're much more than spa treatments and using local products and using cosmetics. Wellness experiences are also about being present and getting your mindset, shifting your mindset into a certain place that is of healing and of growth And travel is a beautiful place to do that. Tourism is an incredible way of being able to disrupt your life enough to be able to allow for awe-inspiring moments to come in, to be able to transform you in the long run. How to design wellness experiences that integrate local knowledge, traditional products, etc. Ways to do that, I see it as being very co-creative. So, you know, you are designing as the guest, you're designing, or you're making products, you're making maybe perfumes from from the botanical garden. You pick the leaves and then you make something from it, and you can take it home with you. That's and also that experience, something like that, where you bring in the power of aroma. And aroma in memory, you know, is such a strong sense in memory. It's the strongest thing to keep you going back to that experience you had when you were wherever you were. Is just one of the most powerful ways, is just to smell that smell again. And that is so connected to wellness and cosmetics. An example, we're working in a resort theming project in Saudi Arabia, and we're looking, and we're always being pushed to keep things extremely local and relevant. And so some of the experiences that we're doing are, you know, creating, having jewelry making out of achwa date seeds and making jewelry from that. As well as, I mean, this is very local and connecting with a local place, and also from that, I noted already the idea of creating perfumes from the plants from the place, but also, of course, candles, even just lighting a candle from the place, and inspiring ritual and bringing in local ritual that does use certain wellness products, is another way of incorporating all of the components into an experience. And yeah, just being very careful that all of your experiences are from the place, that they have a sense of place. I think that when I think of a wellness experience in travel, I think of the art of making of flower arrangements in Japan, this beautiful tradition of making flowers arrangements, which is just the most presencing experience, which is such an important piece of wellness. How do we tie that into what the beauty practices? I'm not sure, but I think that the wellness tourism, it needs to be expanded beyond what we talk about necessarily around spa and treatments.
Yeah, this is the bigger conversation, right? And Alina and I talked about this. The spa is just the bricks and mortar. Wellness is not.
Yeah.
But as a developer, you always want to give. I always want to give projects a sense of purpose, a sense of place. However, I don't create caricatures. So, you know, we want to be able to respectfully acknowledge the culture, the wisdom, the heritage, right? But we don't want it. It's normally a much better way to do these things subtly, and so they appear to be as an educational touch point, and an experiential touch point, of course, but an educational touch point rather than just, you know, in your face. Yeah, I always say, you know, it's, God forgive me, but I always call, I've called for many years Four Seasons déjà vu, because you go to one, you've been like, there's other than George Sank, right? I mean, that's like, we're in Paris. You really avoid, you know, and I think as you get into kind of luxury, uber luxury places, they whitewash the general experience in favor of service. You know, my projects in India, for example, I mean, and so this regenerative tourism, it goes much further than natural skincare. In India, for example, my projects in India, I'm working with a company that makes uniforms, but they actually go out into the poor villages and they teach women and children how to make thread. And the thread that they make is then used for the uniform. So the conversations about how we can come full circle regenerative, or whatever the step further than that is, maybe begins at local natural ingredients and products, but it certainly doesn't end there. But you also, you want to, there's no point in me flying, any of us, with tourism, flying somewhere and having a generic experience. Just stay home. You're getting on a plane to go and have an adventure, and so your wellness should feel like an adventure, right? But I've always thought wellness is amorphous. There there's 3, 4, there are 5 of us on this call, different to each of us, right? There's no one answer, not one solution, but you create frameworks that somehow feed this kind of like the shift in consciousness, or the shift in conscious travel, for example. But that's where you get, with the local ingredients and the natural ingredients, you do get an opportunity to infuse local culture, heritage, and wisdom without it being a caricature. And look, no one can ever say that I design caricatures. Everything is purposeful, subtle, and that always has a subtle sense of place. And that's because people are flying to you. You want to give them a sense of where they're flying to, even if it is, falls under the umbrella of wellness.
That kind of is, maybe if we circle back to kind of the very first example, if I really love the direction this is going, like how do we define wellness? How do we define also beauty? And that has, especially now at the times of social media and all of this, has changed a lot what beauty means to a lot of people. But if we think about wellness experience outside of spa, and we would go back to those, or we would make it rather a bigger experience, it could be that something is done a lot in Finland is in the wellness or well-being, and actually also mental state well-being or wellness, are like kind of forest walks. So that is something that has an impact on our well-being, and that I think they call it forest baths in Japan, actually. Funny you mentioned Japan. And so it could be that kind of wellness experience where you might collect the ingredients yourself from there. Then you continue to a workshop to make your own natural cosmetics of the local, which you then use in a local sauna, for example. So then it could be like really, it could be wellness in different meanings. It could also come to rituals and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
if you're ritualizing something like that, is full immersion, right? If you're collecting it, I mean, now you're fully immersed. So yeah. Sure.
In the traditions, in the local ingredients, ingredients, and then of course, yes, you do your own thing, but then some of the formulas might be more advanced, still maybe 100% natural, but from local brands, for example.
And that's a way of bringing wellness into transformation. So from wellness to transformation, bringing in ritual, and inspiring ritual that you can bring home with you, that you can start incorporating into your daily life, so that integration back home, which is when the real transformation and long-term wellness happens, is something you can continue to immerse yourself in that change long after you've returned home.
Well, I can tell you that as an experienced designer, one of the first things that I do in any process is I don't assume anything. And the other thing is that we should stay away from copy pasting. The key point is what you said, and that is a co-creative process. I have on my website, the first thing I say, I co-create, or I support co-creating ecosystems. And that means that we need to move away from the old models, the copy paste, because by and large, unless you're doing something very specific, or you're doing the work of, like, for example, what Nigel does, he doesn't copy paste anything. Everything is absolutely bespoke to what is needed in a sense of place. But I think we need to start with this idea of where are we going? Culture at the end of the day is just an implicit agreement by a group of people of a we space. That's what it is. It's the simplest terms. That's what it is. And we need to plug into that DNA of what that is to be able to respond to it. Respond, not react, but really respond to it in the most significant way. In 2020, I created a wellness program where one of the pillars of wellness was culture, for that very reason. because we are, otherwise all we are doing is appropriating something that is really not coming from us. And I think we need to raise consciousness around appropriating things for entertainment value or for being that caricature that Nigel was talking about. So for me, as an experienced designer, I need to be able to gather all of those stakeholders, particularly the ones that matter the most, the ones on that place, and really find out what is important to them and what is important to people who come there. And then I can reverse engineer to anything that I would be doing as an experience, right? Working with the developers, working with all of the stakeholders up and down the pipeline. And my final, I think, commentary around this, if it truly is to be regenerative, we need to be able to leave a place better for having been there and not the other way around. And I went to Sweden recently at Hagastrand that has all of these naturally sourced products that they're offering there. And I think it can happen from the most obscure sort of eco type of experiences, and it can happen on a more, and it should happen, eventually systematized to really move into a new way of really seeing this whole picture and delivering these experiences to what I have now come to understand is a transformational aspirant. Move language away from consumer, which is a very degenerative way of thinking, and move him or her to this idea that ultimately transformation is not an event, it is a process.
I love kind of what you pointed out, kind of a little hint there. Also, the fact that, if we get away from this this client and serving, let's say, a spa treatment or something, but it becomes more of a thing we can do all together, then that will change a lot of things. And what is being very interesting to see lately in as little words in social media has been moving away from self-care and going to community care. More of something that would actually, lift
collective care.
Another level. Yeah.
Yeah. Melina and I said this on a webinar the other day about this. It's, in order for something to be regenerative, it can't be self-care. It has to be collective care, because collective care is self, community, everything around you, and this is, I believe fully, and I live my life this way, and I create projects this way, but I believe fully that in order for you to find balance within, you have to create balance without. And that is your built environment, that is your community, that is the support for the community using local harvesters, local product makers, and creating a bridge from the experience to the wisdom using those kind of elements.
I mean, Jillian, sorry, I just want to make that point because the guy in charge of Alula in Saudi Arabia, and you spoke about Saudi Arabia, made this point beautifully at the GWS. They are a world, UNESCO World Heritage Site that is involved in all of the activities that you're talking about, but equally they're bringing in culture, they're bringing in the arts, and they're very mindful and very, very intentional to make sure, and they don't want to over mass tourism. He made a very specific point, similar to Bhutan, okay? They do not allow, they limit the amount of people, but then, to your point, Jillian, he said, look, when we create these experiences, which we create them very intentionally, we don't want the hundreds in this experience. We want a handful of people. We want the 14, 15 groups of people doing specifically what both you and Suta were talking about.
Mm. Adding to what Nigel were saying about the relationships with others and how you are, your connection with the community. Absolutely, that's so important in experience development. Thinking about within the Transformational Travel Council, we design, we have a 6-week, online course about how to create transformative experiences, and we ask the travel provider to look at everything within two lenses, which is like dual lenses, the perspective of the traveler and then perspective of the designer. And then also when you build experiences, looking at those three foundational relationships: your relationship to yourself, your relationship to others, so the community that you're working with, or your fellow travelers, or the guides, and how you want to show up in your communications, and how you want to show up as a traveler and as a travel designer with others and bridging others. And then also your relationship with systems and stewardship. So your relationship with nature, your relationship with community as a system, and then just looking at it from those terms, and they become, it's a way, and if we're talking about wellness, it's a great word, because it's a way to, we talk about improving and honing your travel practice. Just as a yoga practice or your meditation practice, it's also your travel practice. You want to be better travelers, less consumers, more of a reciprocal exchange, which is what hospitality is. You're a guest, you have guests and you have hosts. And how do you, as a guest, go to a dinner party? If you've been invited to a dinner party, you come, you bring a bottle of wine, you offer to do the dishes, things, you act like it's reciprocal. And travelers should do the same when they're going to places. It's
the nice guest.
It's reciprocal. And supporting local is very, very important for wellness, for sure. But beyond that,
Stuart, you used exactly the right word, stewardship. It's that's most of my projects are greenfield now, and so there's the sense of stewardship and responsibility for me is frankly overwhelming sometimes, because I have the history of the land in my pocket. I have the future of the land in my other pocket. And so stewardship, understanding that whatever I create has to look and feel like it was pulled from the land, not put on the land. And that is the bricks and mortar, that is the architecture, the design, but the overall experience has to be super connected. Because Satu, what you were saying earlier about the walking in the forest in Finland and collecting those, that is so far from transactional spa, right? I mean, massage is I would say, I say transactional like it's a bad word, but it's not really. But yeah, I would say spa, beauty spa, it's transactional. But once you start getting people immersed in purpose and place, there is an autonomy there, and the autonomy of it creates the sustainability of it. I think that gives it. I hate to say the word longevity because everyone's saying it now, but it gives longevity, And so, but it's those kind of like critical, tapping into this kind of experience economy and the wellness economy, putting people's hands in the soil, getting them connected, getting them understanding. It's this, we've been throwing around the term lately, barefoot luxury, but the barefoot luxury is finding the place in the place, right? Feet on the soil, hands in the dirt, like getting people super connected. And that's experience, that's experiential wellness, and that gives people memory and a slice of the history and the heritage. So the ownership there is
I like the term ownership that you use in autonomy. We're also now those in the transformational travel space are talking about travelers as participants rather than guests or visitors or whatever. They're participants. You're participating and being there and doing. You're really showing up and bringing your presence.
I think you're right, because traditionally people think a tourist just goes there and they're passively, kind of parading around and just being a spectator, but they need to be engaged and participatory in that, because that is by definition the meaning of regenerative. And going back to something that both Nigel and you said, and also Satu was saying it implicitly as well, I think we're talking about some form of value exchange, and beyond the transaction, which is just talking about exchange of money, we're talking about the exchange of that intentionality. And I love what you said about this idea that we need to be able to educate the traveler on how they should be mindful of behaving, because I think for so long, the typical tourist just goes there, a lot of times, unfortunately, with a huge sense of entitlement, okay, with the sense that I am bringing my money and therefore you have to serve me kind of a mentality, which is an attitude, forgetting things like the fact that there is a sacredness to going to certain places, that this must be respected, that one must be mindful of the way one treads on, places. Even if we go to Europe, the mass tourism and the impact it's had on local communities in places like Venice, like Florence, where they are literally, day by day having destroyed this incredible heritage. And then if we're talking about ecosystems, particularly, wildlife, flora, fauna, that we need to be able, and that this idea that this new luxury has become going to pristine places where that in fact is not a privilege, it's a right of every human being to be able to live in pristine places.
I love how this is becoming we're talking a lot about what different words means, because also words, they change the perspective and everything. Like you were saying the word tourist, and I'm like, it does come from a word tour, right? So you just do a tour somewhere as well. And then back in the day when I was flying, we're not calling passengers, but guests, because that was already the fact that would change the perception, how we feel. It should feel more homey as an atmosphere in long flights. But the same way, whenever who is a participant or part of the community, that would make quite a difference. And then towards luxury, that is something that has been in our headlines basically since we started. What is actually luxury? And that is probably very different depending on different decades. In the 80s, for example, luxury was something brand new at the time, and thought something about consuming things, because that was it wasn't maybe available to everybody, or that was something new and it was seen very differently. And now what is luxury? Luxury is actually the one that very few can take off, whether it's off the screen or whether it's off the routines of every day that just never end. There might be a lot of different aspects that we actually consider luxury at the moment. So
I also say although they can live together, I would luxury for me, like in its regular definition, is isolating. I think if something is something is too manicured, you can't find self-reflection or wellness in perfection, right? I mean, you can only find it in connection, and there's no connection in perfection. It's just perfect. It's gross, and luxury is like that, right? And with these luxury places, they're kind of overall message is is service. It's this recalibration of luxury 5-star service. But in wellness, you don't want people to be served. You want them to feel wanted. And so there's needs to be a shift. Just to your point, Satu, there just needs to be a shift in this kind of this thought that luxury hospitality, it's now I think we see it as quite cold. Certainly I do. It's cold and it's isolating, and there's not much room for connective, immersive wellness in perfect, shiny luxury.
Well, if it takes on this whole entire ethos of exclusivity, the exclusion of, it's de facto excluding the local community. It is excluding up and down the entire ecosystem of even the whole entire process. It's exclusive, it's excluding. And that is the antithesis of what regenerative really means, And so I think it's interesting. It requires relanguaging. It requires a change in mindset. It requires an awareness, and this idea that Jillian was talking about, educating. And sometimes I don't necessarily believe that people are not thinking about it because they don't care. They're not thinking about it because no one's shown them a different perspective to say, have you ever thought about it this way?
Yes.
And those who are ready will step into this sort of stewardship, will step into this really reciprocal relationship where it no longer just becomes about a value attached to a dollar or a euro. It becomes about an intrinsic value of that, what is important to me, my purpose, what is life enhancing, what is life affirming, and all of these things fall into this space. And if we go back to the original thing we began to talk about, this idea of cosmetic, and the fact that this is something that is put on something that is the largest organ in the body, and that gets transdermally transferred into the body, well, that has a whole cycle on its own. If we're talking about waste, if we're talking about everything. And I think that all of these conversations begin to help us understand ultimately what holistic really means.
And I think, Elina, this was really good because it really brings us actually to the next question. And maybe I should have put 2 hours for this conversation. But no, this is just so interesting. I really love all the input, and it's not talked about. Like, no one is talking about it. Like, cosmetics always are this expense in hospitality that no one wants to put any money on. No one has an understanding about, even though it's something we use all the time. And there are these beautiful chances to educate, to immerse, to get to know people, destination, traditions, everything. But so when it now comes, I love that we actually have Thomas who has, but we have Thomas with us. He actually has a place. And then we have Asana Shea, that's Emmanuel. He has, like, his family, women work in a shea butter women cooperative. And it's like, you're not in the same country, but, you know, there's those people I would love to know, how can we connect them? How can the little brands or the little producers understand more of the you know, tourism industry, and then the tourism industry and hospitality? How can they understand the impact they can have on the local community if they choose other products? And there is such a disconnect, which is, how can we make informed, like, procurement officers, how can they make informed choices when they buy in? How can we get them to understand?
This is a big question. And like you said, knowledge is everything. And following this project, Fully Natural Awards, that we have plenty of brands that apply every year with their products that are not allowed to our awards. That kind of shows the reality, what is going on in the field. And especially somebody who is not from the cosmetics industry themselves, it can be really, it's a jungle. You can see that when you go to any supermarket, the greenwashing, the green bottles that promise you this and that. So it is a jungle that anybody who is not, let's say, doesn't read all the ingredients list fully chemically, it's hard to know what you're actually buying. So if you are from the hospitality industry, without this knowledge, it is quite impossible, to be honest. I have learned that past years myself as well, to read these lists and understand what's actually behind them, such as perfumes and other things.
Yeah.
But saying from knowledge is the first thing. So, you know, sharing the knowledge, what this actually is, even what kind of options there are, that is where really to start with. When it comes to, let's say, somebody working in a hotel chain or spa choosing the products, I mean, the easiest choice is to go with brands that have certifications such as Natru or Cosmos or Biovita Sana, these really, really high standard natural cosmetic certifications, because they have seen the whole process from sourcing, fair treatment of employees and all of that until the end. So they really have that that mark, and it's an easier choice because you can trust certain players pretty well. Then, of course, if we're talking about local natural cosmetics and brands that are usually smaller, might be really small productions even, but could be very amazing for the sustainability point of view. There is, of course, a notion that that certifications also cost. So perhaps a very tiny brand, there might not be the interest to get the certification. It's a process. So then whether it's the person working in the hotel chain or elsewhere that is actually starting to get the knowledge to be able to read these often maybe more simple ingredient lists that they can do the choices themselves, or then find places like, I have to mention here, our awards. So within Europe, we go through the same way as certifications, all the ingredient lists and their documentation and everything to allow the local productions in the awards. So this kind of listings, wherever they are, whether it's us or someone else who does this work, then you can follow and trust these kind of local makers in a different way. And I think it's very important also for the teams we can talk about where they can get the knowledge from in the first place and to understand what to do, but having the knowledge and making the right choices, that when you're promoting that, okay, we have natural cosmetics or local natural cosmetics in our chain or spa or whatever, that they are actually really quality natural cosmetics. Because if a person has a first touch to natural cosmetics and it's amazing quality, they will be bought to continue this practice forward. But if it's a natural cosmetics or a bit greenwashed product that is not actually functional, they will get the mindset. And there are many of people who have tried, I don't know, a shampoo bar that was a little bit, that's like, it's not my thing, you know, I've tried it once, it wasn't my thing. So actually I don't want to say necessarily conversion, but the conversion of maybe new people to this industry or to testing or using natural products, it is very important that they get amazing experience the first time they do that. And it's often whether it's in a travel or in wellness experience, for example, that is something different for them. I don't know if that made any sense as a base where to start from, maybe the
I always
production sourcing.
Yeah, but also just your early point just about the education, right? What you're saying just now, it reminds me at home in California, at the pharmacy, there's a giant bottle of what says 100% natural aloe vera gel, but it's bright purple. And so all that people read is 100% natural aloe vera gel. And so the education is grassroots stuff, right? I mean, whether it's, we're educating the hoteliers to learning about, the skincare in what is an incredibly, this, Satu, we all know this, what is an incredibly saturated market, right? But often I find with hotelier people speak numbers, wellness people speak emotion, and somewhere in the middle, mostly from our side, we have to kind of like get a little centrist and start translating emotion into numbers, right? But it's often easier, not often, I think it's always easier to tell a story than it is to sell a product. And so that's compounded if the product is local, because the story has relevance coming out of its ears, right? So in addition to that, how would you then educate the hoteliers who are looking at numbers? Local products travel less, probably oxidize less. They have more active compounds in them. From a regenerative standpoint, it makes much more sense to use natural, obviously, right, natural products than flying them in. But I just think I think when you are faced with a numbers-driven person, it's the story. Like I don't think that a hotelier necessarily gives a damn about lavender, right? But if there's a story, is it high altitude lavender grown in the mountains of Provence? Like there are stories about why. For example, why local products are important. These flowers and herbs have evolved, right, to this particular environment, and so it makes sense then that is transferred onto your guests. But the idea with using local products, not just they have to be relevant somehow. I just launched a project in Greece. And I looked at probably 6 or 7 local Greek products, and I didn't choose any of them because I found myself saying, I need a Greek product because it's in Greece. This was an evidence-based, a science-based concept, Minos Palace. And ultimately the products have to speak the same language as the concept, right? It either exists or I have to pull it out. But local products with a purpose, if they fit the concept, it's a plus. Local, generative, fit the concept, and these things, because this is a saturated, in this term I don't use saturated pejoratively, but in a market that's saturated, we have a lot from a development perspective. I have a lot more plates on the table to choose from in terms of local products than I did 10 years ago, even probably 5 years ago. So the landscape for me is a lot healthier, certainly. But I think hoteliers are, what are we, Alina, what was it? 6.8 trillion now? Is that what we are from the global wellness?
We're 6.8 trillion. It's surpassed the value of the tourism industry.
Yeah. By
about 3 trillion.
So hoteliers, so numbers people are starting to pay attention is my point.
And I think through the products, just a quick one, through the products, if you use local, I mean, it makes your place, your hotel unique. It's not like any other. So that is numbers, people come for that because it's different. Alina, go ahead, please.
No, the only thing I wanted to say, going back to what Julian said before, if you have this capacity to design an experience where you have the capacity, in this case, to really interact with that local lavender, which does create that memory because the olfactory is so strong, and then you accompany that with the story, it solidifies the whole experience. It makes it an enriching moment. And then I firmly believe, because I talk about this a lot now, return on experience. If we're able to show that owner operator that there's a very specific return on experience as that is directly correlated to the experience and direct contact with that product, but more importantly, the story that goes with it, then you've got a chance to really prove everything that we're saying. I'm going to have to get off in about 1 minute. I have a hard stop. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone.
She's catching a plane.
Yes,
lovely to meet you, Alina.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Alina. And I will email you the summary and everything. And yes, thank you so much.
It's been wonderful.
Amazing.
Thank you all very much.
Everybody.
I loved all of my fellow panelists. I also learned from all of you, and thank you again, Andrea, for the invite and for this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And if you want to take just another 5 minutes, any ideas, because this is a huge topic, and I don't know, please agree or disagree with me. Like, is anyone talking about this topic actually, like, really connecting these local producers and the hotels? Maybe in some projects, yes, but it seems generally no.
Well, certainly, look, I mean, I think if somebody's hiring a consultant or a developer like me, then absolutely. Generally, though, I'll be honest with you, the reason I like greenfield projects so much is because it's all me, like it's my whole thing, which sounds arrogant, but here we are. But generally, what I disliked about back in the day, just when wellness wasn't a word, we only had spa, was invariably it was the owner or his or her, the owner's wife. They went and they had a facial once and they liked that product, and they just insist on that product, and it's non-negotiable whether it fits the concept itself or not. But I think there is definitely a shift towards, I wrote this thing for a magazine called The Modern Wellness Paradox, where we are stuck on a hamster wheel of consumption. Every year we've got trends, and then 12 months later there's a new trend. And what the hell happened to that trend that I just threw in a bunch of capex on, right? Now that's not relevant anymore, and I've got to, so in this industry, you have to come off of this consumer hamster wheel of wellness where technology and everything's thrown in your face at the speed of light. come away from the trends and you look at shifts. Shifts represent a change in awareness, consciousness. Gillian, travel. I mean, the shift in wellness travel. I mean, wellness travel is not a trend; it is a shift. So when you're looking at this, you're looking at shifts. One of the shifts is that despite all of this wellness noise around us, people are coming back to the fundamental truth that we are connected to nature. One of our taglines for Moss of the Isles is we are intrinsically connected to the land and to the tides. This is true. And then this is a shift where people, in this article I wrote, I said the next best thing will always be your connection to to the nature around you and to yourself. That's it. But natural products that are connected to nature is a shift. It's a shift back because it was that way in the early 2000s, and then we got crazy.
I mean, if you think about it, who goes to travel, who goes to a wellness experience or anything, it's somebody who wants to either learn something, so they want to, whether it's see new places, learn about the culture, in the end, immerse themselves somehow, or then have a holiday, really relax and everything. But if there's not any kind of connection or like a deeper meaning, even the relaxation may stay in more of a surface, or then you do not feel that rejuvenated, could we say, after your holiday or travel, or that connected or educated. But if you have those little things, whether it's an actual full experience or whether it's a local soap bar in your hotel room that nearby tells the whole story, what's going on in the fields, so you actually learn. And then for those hoteliers, maybe they see numbers in that they actually sell those in their hotel, or they actually get more sales even from those customers.
But look, we're narrative people, right? Which is why we grew up with fairy tales. We respond to storytelling, and so that is why I think if people, if people not only hear the story, but if they can also see themselves as part of it. This is a strange. I'll say. Did you ever see the movie Blair Witch Project? Right. So the Blair Witch Project was the most terrifying movie ever in the world. And the reason is the monster was mine. You never saw a monster. You only saw suggestions of the monster. And so the monster that I create in my head is much more scary than the monster that anybody could create for me. And likewise with you guys. And it's the same with you. But then also with the marketing for my projects, you never see a face. You only see a suggestion of a person, not an actual person. The reason is I want people I don't want people seeing somebody else experiencing what they want. I want the suggestion of it so that they can see themselves experiencing it, right? And in the same way, it's pulling people into the storytelling and making them part of the story. And that's where we go back to ownership, right? And if you're part of it, if you feel like you're part of the story, the soap, the shampoo soap, if you're part of the story, then it's the Blair Witch Project in here, right?
So like when you see it in the hotel room, it says that each sold product will help this in this way, the whole community. So the person who then goes downstairs in the hotel and buys one feels that they are already contributing to the community as well. So
all regeneration, absolutely. You leave it better than you arrived.
I know we're over time, but I have to say this question is to ask this question at this time, it's a very difficult and long question. What you're asking is, how do you inspire behavior change in a human being? And that is a very, very difficult thing to do.
You know what? There's one. Yeah, no, go ahead, please. I'm thinking that the towels you throw on the floor, everyone understands that by now. Can we tell a story about the product we're using? Like if you don't take this piece of soap with you home, or if you take it home, you will save X amount of that. But Gillian, go ahead, please.
Yes, I think using story is an excellent way of inspiring potentially, momentary change and possibly long-lasting change. this is lasting change, which is transformation, which is hard. And we talk about using travel, that travel is a process. And so how to use travel to transform, to make better choices, like sustainable cosmetics, like how you spend your time with your children, like how you connect with your neighbors, any kind of change, small t transformation about being more present, or large T transformation, like changing your whole, your whole career or something. The way, the way that well, first having guides, having helpers to help you along with that change, within, just like when you go to a gym, you have a trainer. In this case, we have travel planners or travel coaches that can guide you along each step of the process, and also helping the traveler to be more aware and conscientious, and to be more intentional, so that they can pick up those stories that you're telling them, pick them up, be more aware. Oh, that is incredible. That is important, because I'm awake. I'm a traveling awakened.
Well, I'll tell you, just jump in real quick. I'll tell you, I believe your behavior mirrors your belief, period. What travel does and what storytelling does, it does nothing for your behavior. It works purely on your belief. And, for you to go out, from a traveling perspective, to go out into the world and see yourself in the greater context, that is a belief shift. So the idea is that, we don't ever work on people's behavior, because the minute we turn our back, that's just going to go back to what it was before. Is that you have to work on people, you leave their behavior alone, you work on their belief. Travel does that beautifully. It shifts people, it transforms them, but it transforms them from a belief-centered place, and the behavior then subsequently, becomes better anyway. But storytelling does that too. And if the storytelling is, this regenerative community support, the ladies making thread in the villages, if you're becoming a part of that story, it changes your belief, so that when you get home, I don't know anybody who throws trash out of a car window, but you won't throw trash out of a car window, for example, because your belief has shifted. You've experienced something, and travel does that so beautifully. The exposure that you get from it, and the shift in belief that you get from it is fantastic.
I love that. I mean, of course, like Gillian said, like, what is this question even? Like, I don't even know if we can unpack everything. I mean, it's a massive question. And I just came to my mind, like, I just love to be in this kind of talk and discussion about such massive and deep human connection talk, because on the other end, there are all these webinars and discussions about how we can actually replace those connections, how we're going to go to AI, how we're going to, turn into that kind of world that all of this is actually gone. But in the end, then I was thinking that, okay, well, the travelers, the people actually coming there will be humans. I don't think we will have robots coming on the travel experience, right? So in the end, I feel like, funnily, perhaps the more the world is going to go towards isolation due to AI and robots, the more this is actually needed, and the more people actually crave the real connection, the actual nature, back to that. So perhaps pushing a lot towards AI will actually make this industry win. I'm not sure. I brought this to somewhere completely else.
Great way. It's a great way to pause, I think. It's a great thing to end on.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Oh my God. And, I know the first question, like, I had set a timer in my mind where we should break the first question, but then sometimes it feels like in panel discussions, you never have enough time. So at least one question we really could talk through.
Yeah, listen, anytime you get a group of impassioned people, an hour is never enough.
Exactly. And I think, like you were saying, if we show, instead of just serving the ready-made product or serving the ready-made dinner, let's take them farm to table, even with cosmetics. Let's show them 1 ton of, hand-picked lavender gives you this little drop essential oil that you can put in your massage oil. And, how many coconuts do you have to press to get coconut oil for a whole body massage. So I think bringing people in, we even had people, take them on a beach cleanup, and they loved it. It was like their best day on their holiday. They were working for us, cleaning the beaches, and they loved it.
I do that. I have a project in Nepal, and yeah, not just the guests. Actually, I take the staff out, and we do. It's karma yoga. We do a whole hike, and we just pick up trash in the Himalayas. Yeah, but that kind of stuff, people love it. Guests love it. Yeah, but guests love it.
They love it, yeah. And I think smaller hospitality, businesses, because there are a lot of small businesses, medium out there, they are afraid of that. They want to serve the customer instead of involving them and make them feel something. Because from travel, we also want to feel alive. And so we want to be in there with the hands, like you were saying before. So
wellness is an adventure, a beautiful adventure.
Yes. All right. Let's break it up here. This is your all Saturday.